Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this tutorial series. We're going to be talking today about custom materials, custom textures, how to modify items to look nicer within your game. Now, I did say that this is intended primarily for new people, no experience with verse or coding or UEFN in general. So to start with, we're just going to go with the simplest but least creative version. So if you're just trying to change the look of a wall, there's plenty of materials already available in the game without having to make your own. So say you just want to change this to a different color. There's plenty of color blocks and cubes that you can just steal from. So I don't know, for some reason you wanted this wall to be brown. There's a primary, all of them are going to have a material. So copy, click on the wall. Oop, wrong one. Where's the material? Oh, here it is. And paste. And suddenly you've copied the material from that cube to the wall. And it, say you wanted it to be a chromatic or metallic color. There's plenty of metallic items as well. Okay, so here's a silver one. So we can do the same thing with materials here. Copy the material. Go down to your primary and paste the material. And you have a silver wall without having to create any custom materials or textures or anything else. There's plenty of materials already within the game that you can use without having to bother with importing or making your own. So if you're just wanting to change the look of your map a little bit, this is a quick and simple way to do it. All right, but say you do want something a bit more unique. You want to bring in an image or texture from somewhere else. I mean, that's about as simple as it could get, honestly. You can use any regular image in the game. Go ahead and remove that filter real quick. So I've already got a bunch of them here, but literally it's just drag and drop. Any image you have saved on your computer. So I've got just an icon here. Just drag it in and it'll automatically import it. And once it's in, you have a custom texture. Now, to put a texture onto something, it has to be a material. Fortunately, UEFN is good about taking care of that for you. You don't have to go in and manually create the material. The first time you try to drag a texture onto something, it's automatically going to create you a material. Now, that's got that little piece on the wall, so that's going to happen. But you can see right here, it created the material for me just by dragging it on. So that's convenient. But say you didn't want it to be the whole thing, you just wanted to be your little icon here. So how do you do that? Well, that's actually something that should be done outside of UEFN. You can make your own picture in anything. If you're using a higher end program like Photoshop or something like that, you can easily go in and remove the background, make it transparent. If not, there's plenty of programs out there for that. I would recommend just go to Google, search for free background or remove background from image, and this Adobe one pops up right here. So if you have an icon or anything else, you just want the image and don't want the background, just go to this website and drop it right here, and it'll remove the background for you, and it'll just give you back an icon. So yeah, this one right here, same thing I just did. Let's go on this side so you can see it a bit better. All I did was take the image and put it in that website, and you have a transparent one. Which again is kind of funky just because of the wall. If you had used a regular plane, or actually let me just go ahead and drag in a plane for you. That way it's a flat surface without the texture, make it a bit easier to see. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So same texture we just had, except actually on a flat surface this time. And whoop, it's upside down, but you get the idea. Any image you drag in can be made into a texture just by dragging it into the folder. And the first time you drag it onto any object in the game automatically creates you a custom material. Easy, quick, nothing complicated about that. Anyone brand new to the game should be able to do that. And just drag and drop gives you custom materials you can put anywhere in your map. All right, so at this point, before we go any further, I do want to stop for a minute and just remind everybody, just because you can use any image doesn't mean you should. If you just go to Google and start grabbing random celebrities or anime figures or anything else and putting pictures of it in your map's just going to get taken down for licensing issues. If you do not own a license for an image and or it's not a publicly licensed image, you don't need to use it. It's just a waste of time and going to end up getting you in trouble. Okay, so what if you wanted to have custom text in your map? Well, same thing. There's plenty of websites out there that will let you create custom text and just download it as an image. Again, if you have Photoshop, Manga Studio, Corel, most art programs will already allow you to type and create text in them. Because again, anything that is an image, whether it be a JPEG, PNG, etc., you can just drag in. So it's exactly what we just did. So let's go ahead and add another plane. All. And again, especially on the text, is you want to make sure that the background is transparent. So whether you have to do that in your software or at the Adobe website, it doesn't matter. But so where's one of the text I drug in? Yeah, text images. Same thing as we just did on that first one. I had a text I made in another program. I drug it from the folder into here, and it created a texture. And then the first time I drug it onto an object, it created a material. So, I mean, I could drag the text again if I wanted, or just drag the material. Either way is going to be fine. And it just creates the text. And now I could place that anywhere in my map. So go back to the starting area here, and you've got nice custom texts identifying each room, each portal. No different than any other image. Okay, well, now that we've got the easier ones out of the way, we can start diving into creating the more exciting textures, the ones you're making from scratch. From your metallics to your moving materials to rough or shiny, the just about anything you can think of can be made as a custom material. Now, again, this is a beginner course, so we're only going to go over the basics. There's thousands of tutorials out there if you want to start making some crazy animated materials. But for now, for the basics, all you do is right-click anywhere in your content browser down here, and we're going to create a material. Name it anything you want. I'm just going to leave it new material for now, and then to get started, double-click. So for the basics on here, I mean, some of them, most of them are fairly self-explanatory. I mean, base color is literally you just create a flat color material. You can make it any color in the spectrum you want. So sure, let's make it bright pink. And just save that. And we'll go out and take a look. Go ahead and set up another plane here. And again, I'm using planes just because flat surfaces usually result in the best images. You can apply the material to anything you want, a wall, a cube. If you wanted to have this material stretch or icon stretched over a truck, you could. But since this is just demonstration, we're just going to go ahead and use a plane. So new folder. So here's our pink material. Just drag it on, and ta-da! You have turned it bright pink. So your next one on here is going to be metallic. Again, self-explanatory, just what it sounds like. It is 0 to 100, or 0 to 1 as a percentage. So if you put it 0, it's not shiny at all. Metallic is chrome pure shine. So we'll go ahead and put that all the way up to 1. And why is that not shiny? Okay, I remember why that's not shiny. Because there is a second option on that too. It's also the roughness, which is going to be the exact opposite on this. The lower, the smoother it is, the shinier it's going to be. So if you want it to be just completely metallic looking, you would also have to put the roughness down to 0. Sorry, I forgot that part for a second. And see, it looks like a Christmas ball almost. So let's go out and take a look at our wall now. I didn't do double-sided on it, but I mean, you could straight up see your reflections in there. I mean, that's as shiny as you're going to be able to get. And you can have that in any color, any structure you want. Okay, so say you've got a color you like, metallic, flat, whatever, but you don't want it to just be a smooth surface. Well, you can apply a texture to it. Okay, so we'll right click here, and we want to search for a texture sample. And go back down to your content drawer, all for all folders, and just search for texture. And there are hundreds of textures. Well, you got the custom made ones here I did, but then you've also got all of these. You've got stone textures, wood textures, chain textures, brick textures, cliff textures. Textures for every material that's already in the game. So, I don't know. Let's just pick one, I guess. Let's try this herringbone one and see how it looks. So, click the texture, click apply. And we're going to put it into our normal. And you see, that texture we just selected is now applied to the material. So we can go ahead and save that. And drag it onto the wall. And we have now created a rough red brick texture. That's all it is. Same, just like we did the base color. We can apply any texture to it that the game has available, or any custom texture we import in. Now, one thing that I'm a fan of, it's not technically a texture, but say you have an out-of-bounds area in your map. People can use barrier devices, or death barriers, or damage volumes, or what have you to keep people from getting out of the map. But for me, the simplest way to do it is, instead of having an opaque material, I use a translucent material and set the opacity to 0. And that literally creates an invisible material. So anytime you have a place you don't want someone to go, you can apply that material to that wall, and you have an invisible wall they cannot walk through. So I just use that to surround my maps to make sure people can't get out of bounds without wasting memory on crazy amounts of barrier devices, etc., etc. So that's just a quick piece of advice on that one. It's not technically a texture, but I did want to throw that in, that there are other options down here besides just the opaque. All right. So we've talked about the base color, the metallic, the roughness. Let's go ahead and look at the emissive color now. Base color is, again, just literally that. It is your base color, the flat color underneath everything else. Anything you lay on top of it's going to end up with a pink tint. However, emissive color kind of overwrites that. Kind of picture a light bulb in your house. If you're just looking at it when it's not, and no power running through it, it's white with just a frosted white texture to it. But when you turn it on, suddenly it's glowing yellow. Same concept here. Even though there's a pink base, when it's emitting light, it glows whatever color you want to do here. So if you're needing a brighter color, like a fluorescent or a neon, you're going to want to use an emissive color on it. I mean, you can still leave the base, but you don't really have to, as long as there's an emissive color. So let's just emit a green from it. And see, it is now a glowing green color. And I went ahead and moved this inside a darker area to kind of make it pop a little bit more how glowing it is. Now we can go back outside with it now. I mean, so far, nothing we're doing should sound complicated. These are all simple things to do. Again, you can get as crazy as you want with it, but this is just beginner tips on how to improve your maps and do custom materials. All right, so what do we want to look at next? Okay, Specular is going to be a bit more complicated. Let's go ahead and clear that off. What's the best way to describe Specular? Specular is essentially how reflective the material is, but it's also compared to the texture. I think it'd be easier to just go ahead and give an example before we go any further with this. But basically, if you put an icon or some kind of image onto the material, and then apply it to the specular, anything, any spot that that icon covers is going to be reflecting more or less light than the rest of the surface is. It's basically how you get like a stamped on image. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We're not going to need it to be metallic for this, so I'll go ahead and take that back off. So when you right click here, there's hotkeys for everything, of course, but just right click and it'll bring up the list of everything you can do on these. But all we're needing right now is to add a texture, just so I can show it to you. So we'll get a texture sample, and we'll grab one of the icons we were looking at earlier. Do we want the full image or the little circle? I think I want the little circle, that one. Where did I have that one? Was it under with my text? Yeah, okay. So select that one and apply. And so now we have this texture in our material file. And so if we connect, I mean, you've got your red, green, blue, the alpha and all that, but if we're wanting to use all of the colors and the whole texture, which we are for a simple example, then you just drag this to wherever you want to apply it to. If we apply it to the base color instead of the pink, then it becomes the whole texture itself. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick before we go back to the specular. And so just by making that the base color, then the entire thing is now the texture. Unlike this one though, since it doesn't have, since we did a base color for the whole thing, it does not count the back as transparent. So that is one thing on, if you're just doing a custom material, you have to actually add the transparency. So if you're going to have the clear background anyway, just go ahead and use it off the image instead of making a custom material for it. It's going to be quicker. But yeah, so that's how that would be looking. Let's go back into that and look at the specular again. So go ahead and remove this link. I just right clicked on it and it brings up the options. So I break that link, put it back at pink, and this time we'll put it into the specular. Now, since the icon is orange and blue instead of a dark color, you see it's pretty faint. If I'd used black or something else, it would be a lot more apparent. But it should still work for this example. Let's go ahead and close out. And you see now it is a stamped on image. It still keeps the base color, but it's just the places where that specular image is reflects a different amount of light. You see how it's shinier than the rest? And so you can, oh, got the wall in the way. But that's, like I said, specular is kind of hard to describe, but you will understand it after a while. It's not really changing the material. It's just setting that part to be more or less reflective so that it can still be seen is going to be your specular. Okay, so one last thing I wanted to cover, and that's going to be the moving materials. You can have images moving side to side, up and down, sitting there spinning. You can move it however you want. But it's really not that much more difficult than just applying a stationary image. So again, we're going to need our image or texture. So let's add in a texture sample. And we're going to be moving left to right on this first one, I guess. So I've got a rainbow texture in here just to, oh, hang on, it's got an autosave. Again, you can make it in any image paint program, drawing program, or you can find an image from the internet. So go ahead and select it, and we're going to apply it to our texture. And then we have our color. And this is now a rainbow texture. Just, again, drag and drop. But how do we make it move? There's only two. I mean, out of all of these, again, you can make literally any material you can think of. But just to make the image move left to right, you want it to pan left and right like a camera. So, obviously, it's called a panner. And you just connect this to the left side on the UV. And that's automatically going to make it spin. But wait a minute. The colors aren't moving. Well, that's because they're currently moving at a speed of 0. Let's increase that to, say, 0.5. So go ahead and save that. And apply it. And so the 0.5, it's making 0.5 laps per second. So half a lap, so 2 seconds to get all the way across. So faster, slower, and if you want to go the other direction, it's just a negative. So, right, if we did negative 0.5, it'd be going the opposite direction at the same speed. If we wanted to go slower, just again, lower number. Let's say we wanted it to go real slow, 0.01 rotations per second. And that should just be like barely inching. Yeah, so that's about as slow as you can see it move, but it is moving. But let's go back to the main lobby over here, and you can see that. I mean, going way too fast. But I mean, right here, you've got the icon spinning around the middle. You've got rainbow colors spinning around the bottom. That's all it was, is that material we just made can be drug onto anything. And that now you have just a slowly moving texture. But what if we don't want it to move side to side? What if we want it to spin? Like, say, this portal right here. Well, that's just as simple. Let's go back over here to our little wall and go back into our material. So we're not wanting it to pan side from side, we're wanting it to rotate. Well, again, they're fairly... Well, let's just say they're not very creative with some of the names, which is a good thing. So if we're wanting to rotate it, well, we need a rotator. And it's the same thing. Apply this here. And I don't really like that texture for rotating. We'll add in that spiral we were using for the portal. Right here. So texture, apply, and save. And just by changing it from a panner to a rotator, we now have a rotating material. You could put any material you wanted to on that, and it would start spinning just because you would put a rotator on it. About as simple as you can get on that. Again, you can make literally any material you can imagine. It's just you'd have to go a lot more in depth. But this should be enough of the basics for people to start doing more than just flat colored, solid color walls and everything. You can have the metallics. You can have, again, moving elements, custom colors, custom speculars, and I don't really know what else to say on that. I mean, hopefully this will get people to start getting a little bit more creative with their images. So hopefully this helped everyone out. Y'all have any questions, add them down below. Once the series is over, I'm probably going to go through and do a Q&A after a while, once I've had time for some questions to build up. And beyond that, hope it helped. I'll have the map code listed down in the comments if anyone wants to go take a look at some of the materials we talked about. Again, it is an incomplete map. I'm just going to be updating it as we go along so that people can see examples of everything that we had discussed here. Y'all have a good one.